What is going on, everybody, and welcome to the Saturday afternoon edition of the Stochastic NHL Strategy Show, sponsored by Sleeper Picks. I am your host, Josh Harris. Joining me, as always, in his Christmas wrestling sweater, Week 3, Slim Cliffy. How you doing?
Not too bad, man. Just everyone have a macho Christmas.
I can't even do it. I tried.
Yeah, it would hurt my throat way too much to even bother. I don't know how we did that for so long. Starting to get into the Christmas spirit over here. Got my mini tree behind me. Went and got the real tree yesterday. Going to put that up after the show. Starting to put up some decorations. So really starting to feel a little bit festive. Hopefully my bank account feels a little bit more festive after tonight. I didn't play last night. You did. You had a good night. What a festival those two games were.
Yeah. Just quickly, the Christmas tree reminds me of the funniest thing that you said to me a few years ago. I sent you a picture of my tree one time, and I had that ornament that said diva, and you thought it said divorce.
That'd be one of the funniest possible ornaments to have on your tree.
That was one of the best stories. But yeah, like the devil. Everyone's so high on the Devils this year. They're a good team, but like their goaltending is a big issue.
That's the thing, right? It reminds me of like the Carolina teams from like 5 years ago when they would be like top 5 in goal scoring, top 5 in expected goal share, but like dead last in save percentage. And maybe they'd squeak into the playoffs, but they wouldn't go deep because you can't go very far with bottom 3 goaltending.
Yeah, the Devils outchanced the Sharks last night 103-39. And the Sharks won 6-3. 3-point night for Granlund and Duclair. Like, if Granlund's going to have a 3-point night on a 2-game slate, I'm never going to do well. I still did okay. Like, I cashed. It was more than the min cash because I had, Werenski, I had Merzlikins, I had Johnny Gaudreau. You know what I mean? So, like, it was good. You needed Granlund to win, and that's never going to be in my lineup. It could be a showdown slate, and it won't happen.
I love your allergy to Granlund. We share that. We share that common bond in the NHL.
Before the Granlund goal, he had 2 assists on 2 ridiculous Duclair goals, 0 shots on goal, and 0 block shots. He is Yori Laterra.
I mean, I dropped it in our Discord. Over the last 4 games, he has 4 points at 5-on-5, but he's only been on the ice for 3 goals because he made 1 pass and somebody went end to end and scored. Like, as long as he keeps getting points on 133% of the goals scored with him on the ice, he's going to do well. But I mean, I know a lot of people want to make something of this stretch that San Jose's on. I don't want to talk about it too much longer because that team sucks. But the Buffalo Sabres team from I think it was 2014, 2015, they honestly had a stretch in the middle of the year where they went like 10-4-1, and they finished the year with 20 wins. You know what I mean? Like, hockey is an extremely random game. That's just that's why we talk about the leverage in the top stacks because people don't want to stack certain lines in certain spots or in certain matchups, et cetera, et cetera. Hockey's still random enough where just about anything can happen on any given night.
Yeah, Sharks Josh stack would have been great. Third defenseman and third line winger Jacob McDonald had 2 goals as well. So it's like good stuff there. But this is a fun little 9-gamer. Some big totals on this slate. Some surprisingly high totals as well, and we'll get into those. We'll get into the slate, but before we do, you know the drill, man. You guys got to like, subscribe, keep up with all of our shows, DFS offers, giveaways, and much more. If you subscribe, you should. Hit that notification button to get alerts when our shows go live. Saw some people in the chat yesterday. They were putting up the show for today, but they accidentally dated it for yesterday, and there was a lot of people in the chat, so you guys are probably subscribed. A little bit angry that we didn't show up, but yeah. Just a reminder, 5 games or more, we will be here for shows. 2-game slate, we won't be. If we had a show on yesterday's slate, like, we would have been banging our heads against the wall. But yeah, if YouTube isn't for you, you can find all of our content over on the Stochastic podcast channel. Make sure to leave us a 5-star review. As always, we have the Stochastic Hall of Fame. You just got to change the avatar. on DraftKings or FanDuel. Place in a top 3 of a contest with over 5K contestants. Tweet the win to @StochasticHOF on Twitter or email us with your screenshot. You can win a free month of Stochastic package of your choice. That is funny, that comment. I was there for the cooking show. Disappointed. Me and Haas going to definitely live stream a cooking thing. Like, I'm going to get him the ingredients. I'm going to teach him how to cook something, and we're going to do it live. It's just going to be the most ridiculous thing ever. But yeah, let's get into this slate. Let's start with the Buffalo Sabres with a 2.6 total heading into Carolina. The Hurricanes, 3.9 total. Biggest on the slate. That's a grande total for Carolina. And they're not getting much ownership. And I'm not exactly sure how to feel about it, because on one hand, like, these lines are good and I like playing them. The problem is, like we've talked about, Carolina is one of those teams, their blue line takes a bunch of the shots. Now, Andrei Svechnikov, Teravainen, and Kotkaniemi is the line that interests me more than Aho, Jarvis, and Bunting. If you want to go play them, that's fine. But like, both of those lines are going to get depth matchups for the Sabres. And after you really get past the Middlestad Skinner Tuck line, which isn't even that great defensively, there really isn't much there defensively. I'll let you talk about the Sabres, because Casey Middlestad, excellent season for him. I think not too many people are noticing. Brutal matchup for him today, though. Again, if it is Kochetkov in net for Carolina, he's been okay. I don't think I'm going to have much Buffalo. This is about Carolina for me.
Yeah, it feels, it is a bad matchup. I feel like the last time we said this was a bad matchup, that was when Tampa scored 8 goals on 15 shots. Now, yeah, that was against Antti Raanta. Raanta might go again here tonight. I don't think they've confirmed their goalie. Like, I wouldn't want to play Buffalo. Like, here's the thing is, one of the reasons why Tampa worked out that night is Tampa was like 1-2% owned. Like, it doesn't, like, Buffalo's top line, I'll bring them up in the top stacks here very quickly. The Buffalo top line only has a 4.2% top 2 stack percentage. Like, that's outside the top 12 lines on this slate. It's not bad. And, their ownership is lower than their top 2 percentage, but it is a terrible matchup because they're going into that Jordan Staal line. And as long as the goalies can save like even 85% of the shots, like, we're not really asking for a lot from them. Like, they don't have to be, Thatcher Demko or something like that. They just have to not be like ECHL caliber. It just takes me out of Buffalo. Like, if this were, I'd kind of feel better if it was Tage Thompson, honestly, because Middlestat just doesn't shoot that much. You want guys that shoot against this Carolina goaltending. Middlestat, just real quick, I think I mentioned on Twitter yesterday, he's 5th in the league in points per minute at 5-on-5 going back to last year, like up there with like Pasternak and McKinnon and players like that. It is absolutely insane how good he's been over like a 50-some game stretch. Honestly, it's been about a year and a half now. I'm just talking like straight point production. But yeah, like, I wouldn't begrudge anybody for going to the Buffalo top line just because it is still the Carolina goaltending. Like, even if Buffalo only gets 20 shots here tonight, they could score 5 times. Like, that's just the way Carolina's goaltending works. But I would prefer to avoid that really tough matchup. I'm with you on Carolina too. I wrote up Andrei Svechnikov in the picks article today. One thing is, like, you wonder how he's still faring from knee surgery, but he's starting to pick up his offense a little bit. I think he's got 5 points in his last 5 games. With him and Kotkaniemi on the ice, they're outchancing the opposition 52-29. And the big thing is they're going to go up against that Dylan Cousins, Zach Benson line. And Cousins and Benson have just been getting ran over defensively this year. Now, the problem is like, Carolina's going to carry like a fair bit of ownership here tonight. It's nothing extreme, 5.4% on that second line. But at 14,200, it allows you to put in another fairly expensive stack elsewhere. Like, you can go and put in a $20,000 line with them and still fit in the rest of your lineup pretty comfortably. So I really do like Svechnikov, Kotkaniemi, Teravainen. Like 2 out of those 3 guys are still in the top power play unit. Even if they're splitting units, you still get Kotkaniemi on the second one. So there should be a good power play matchup here for them. So yeah, I do like Carolina too in this matchup. I don't begrudge I don't hate the idea of either of the top 2 Carolina lines. I'm just not sure how long Michael Bunting's going to last on that top line because they have not been good with him there. Basically break even by expected goal share. So it's a Kotkaniemi line for me.
Yeah, I was going to say that makes Netchus a pretty interesting one-off here tonight. You got to kind of hope he moves up, but he does play on one of those power play units, and they do split the units. It's just like 14,200 for a line with Svechnikov and Teravainen. Just feels like if they're flowing, if they're like having really good games, even with Kotkaniemi there, that should be a 17, 18K line. So like, it's just a question of them shooting the puck instead of like Dmitry Orlov or Brady Shea, you know what I mean? But like, they have a 3.9 total, and they're coming in 5.
And to your point earlier about the defenseman shooting, that's why I think if you do play a Carolina stack, you probably should make it a 4-man stack and include a defenseman, just because their defensemen, like statistically, are the most involved defense core in the league when you look at the percentage of shots they take relative to the entire team. They figure into a lot of the goals. So you're going to want like a Brent Burns or a Pesci or, bargain basement, Jalen Chatfield or whatever. We'll get to the defenseman at the end, but I would say if I stack Carolina, I probably have a defenseman on the blue line too.
Yeah, agreed there. Let's move on to the next one. Yeah, Detroit Red Wings with a 3.5 total heading into Montreal. The Canadiens have a 2.9 total. Dylan Larkin is back. We didn't get any confirmation on the lines. I'll let you say what they were. I think it was what?
Veleno, Raymond, Larkin. The last game Larkin played, I think it was Sunday against Minnesota when they won 4-1 in a walk. I think that was the game that got Dean Evason fired. Actually, it was Veleno, Larkin, Raymond, and then Comfer, Rasmussen, and DeBrincat down on the second line. But we don't know what they're going to be. I'm assuming they stack the top line here, but I guess we'll find out at warmups.
So our top stacks tool has Larkin, DeBrincat, Raymond together at 20,900 on DraftKings with almost no ownership here. Now, that if that is indeed the line, it is a fully correlated line against one of the worst penalty kills in the league, a team that takes a metric ton of penalties. Also, they mixed up their lines, and I do not like them at all. I mean, like, no combination you're really going to put together that's going to be decent defensively. I guess like a Suzuki, Caulfield, and someone would be decent, but
probably
not
Brendan Gallagher, because Suzuki and Gallagher actually had decent defensive numbers, like league average, anyways. So
yeah, I mean, but the line is Caulfield, Suzuki, Monahan, and Monahan at this stage of his career is still decent offensively, but he's not a very good skater. Second line of Gallagher, Dvorak, Anderson. You've talked about how awful Anderson is defensively since he came to the team. Third line of Slafkovsky, Pearson, Evans. Like, I don't understand why Marty St. Louis is putting Slafkovsky on the third line. We don't have enough time in the week to discuss that. But for me, if Detroit 1 is loaded together and they're coming in at 1.4% projected ownership, I'm definitely in on them. Now, there are a lot of expensive lines here tonight. Colorado 1, Toronto 1, Boston 1. There's a couple others that we'll get to. So, do you really want to spend up for 20,900 Detroit 1? It is arguably one of the best power play spots on the night. Obviously, Colorado at Anaheim, we'll talk about later. But that's $4,100 cheaper than Colorado 1. A lot less ownership. Arguably one of the, almost as good of a power play spot. So I'm in on Detroit 1.
Yeah, I do like Detroit 1 as well. Speaking of that ownership, this is what we have should they load up the top line with Larkin, DeBrincat, Raymond, 1.4% ownership on DraftKings. Over on FanDuel, even lower, where they're a little bit more expensive, relatively speaking. The power play spot, here's the thing, is like it's a good power play spot for both sides. Like, these are two of the most penalized teams in the league. Montreal is giving up the 5th most power plays per game and Detroit's giving up the 6th most power plays per game. And they both draw a lot of power plays as well. Like Detroit has the 2nd most power plays per game this season. Montreal has the 7th most power plays per game this season. Like there should be a lot of special teams play here tonight. That's why, like, I don't think I'm really stoked about the Montreal top line, because I agree with you on Monahan. Like, I think he can be like, I think he was perfectly suited on the 3rd line where he wasn't tasked with facing, opposing top lines and top defensemen and all that stuff. On the top line where he has to play with Suzuki and Caulfield, like, I think he has the skill. I agree with you. I just don't know if he has the speed to keep up with them. By the same token, it's a perfectly correlated Montreal top line, right? And it's a perfectly correlated top line that's 16,900, I think, on DraftKings here tonight. It's expensive. It's expensive for a Montreal line. But, if Montreal gets like 3 goals here tonight, how many are going to be scored by the depth? That's what I'm kind of wondering. Like, not expecting, Dvorak and Anderson to kind of fill the net. I'm not expecting Slafkovsky and Pearson. Like, I've been a big proponent of the way Slafkovsky's played basically since the start of the year, but they just keep putting him with their depth players, and it's frustrating. I just don't see the offensive upside from their 2nd and 3rd lines. So if Montreal does get to like 3 goals here tonight, it's probably going to be from that top line. So I prefer Detroit 1, even if they're $4,000 more expensive. I prefer Detroit 1 in this matchup, even at that added cost. But I think there is merit to playing Montreal 1 here tonight. But yeah, it's Detroit 1 that I like the best. DeBrincat, Larkin, and Raymond, excellent offensive numbers, 4.3 goals scored per 60 minutes this year. Like, shooting 12.5%, it's a little high, but honestly, if they finished at 12% for the season, it wouldn't be that extreme. You know what I mean? So I think they can be like a 4-goal line per 60 minutes of 5-on-5. And then, we don't know what the power play is going to be. And this is where we have to say DeBrincat was on the 2nd power play unit when Larkin was still in the lineup. I assume they go back to a normal top power play unit with David Perron there, but this is something that we just don't know. At the very least, you'll get 2 out of the 3 on the top power play unit. Montreal is allowing literally 1 power play goal against every game this season on average. So Detroit 1's honestly one of my, as long as it's Larkin, DeBrincat, and Raymond, it's one of my favorite lines on the slate here tonight.
Yeah, and we should note, maybe you mentioned it while I was trying to quiet down my dogs, but with Alex Newhook out, Josh Anderson took over his power play 1 spot in the last game instead of Slafkovsky, which is just painful. But like, if you are doing some part of Canadiens power play stack, it is Anderson who was there last game. Which,
can we just go to the next game? I don't want to think about that.
Marty St. Louis favorite, Josh Anderson. Oh, let's get to this game. Seattle Kraken with a 3-point. Just kill me.
Maybe we don't have to talk about this game.
Seattle Kraken with a 3.2 total heading into Ottawa. Ottawa Senators have a 3.4 total. Somehow DJ Smith is still employed by this team. Did you see their power play allocation from the last game? Dominic Kubalik had more power play time than Stützle, and like
they do that. That's the problem. Well, I mean, I don't mean to cut in, but yeah, when they have all 3 of Shabbat, Chychrun, and Sanderson healthy, they basically split the power play units because they think having Chychrun and Sanderson on the ice for half the power play is worth it to cut down on Kachuk's and Stützle's minutes, which honestly, man, like, I'm with you. I don't know how DJ Smith has a job, and he might not when this weekend is over.
Yeah, and our pal Quick Party, huge Senator slapping. He was like, who are the Sens going to bring in if they fire DJ Smith? Because like you saw with the Wild, they fired Dean Evason. They brought in John Hines, which is arguably a worse coach. So like, who are they going to bring in?
Is Trotz still doing anything?
Trotz is in the Nashville front office.
Oh yeah, that's right. Just tell Evason just to head right on up to Ontario, I guess.
Could be Gallant, could be Elaine Vigneault. That would be funny. But anyway, here we are, another chalk Seattle night. It's just the pricing. Like, they don't move. They're pricing does not move. The Gord line is 12,800. The Beniers line is 13,200. They've been those prices since the beginning of time. Ottawa is, if you watch the Ottawa Senators, like you said, the last slate, it's just like, how are they this bad? And then you realize they're this bad. And it's just like, I guess you got to consider Seattle here. It's just like, I don't want to play negatively leveraged Seattle on this slate because the Gord line is cheap enough to fit with Colorado 1. It's just like, come on, like price them up. They've been good. Like make them 14-5, and then they can't fit in with these elite lines, and their percentages will come down to like 6% or whatever. I don't know. Like they're fine. It's just the ownership on this team just always drives me nuts. The question is what to do with the Ottawa side because Seattle's goaltending is bad. It's just like I don't know who to play on Ottawa. Like I guess like Norris, Tkachuk, Giroux would be where I want to go. It's just like Josh Norris doesn't do too much for me. He's just a shooter, which is weird for a center. But like I don't really want to play Stützle Batherson either. So like I guess it'd be Ottawa 1, and I think the Seattle Beniers line would be my target. If you want to go to the Bjorkstrand line, that's fine. Like I'm kind of hoping Ty Cartier moves up at some point. This game drives me nuts.
Yeah. The thing with Seattle is like they've gotten they had a rough first couple weeks defensively. I remember even specifically making fun of them on this very program. But their defense has improved dramatically. They have the 4th lowest expected goals against rate in the league since Halloween. Now, their goals against is considerably higher because, as you said, their goaltending sucks. And the other thing is that Seattle's penalty kill sucks, like legitimately. Like not only is their goaltending bad on the penalty kill, but I think they're allowing the 3rd most shots per minute while shorthanded in that same span, like since Halloween. So this seems like it would be a great spot for what is normally a very good Ottawa power play, but we just talked about the issues with their power play units yesterday. Like they are going to split them as far as the ice time is concerned. So it's like, what do you really want to dig into? Because there's 2 guys on the top line on one unit. There's 2 guys on the second line on another unit. There's 2 guys on the third line on the second unit. There's 2 defensemen on one unit and 1 on the other. Like everything is all split up. And like, I actually don't even mind Ottawa here tonight. Like they are carrying a 3.4 total, which is the same as Arizona, higher than Calgary and Vegas. Like they're expecting goals from Ottawa here. It's just a matter of figuring out which power play unit you want to use. Like I still do like that top unit. I just worry about their ice time. Now the thing with Tkachuk, Norris, and Giroux is they had bad numbers when Drake Batherson was there on the right wing, but the numbers are a lot better as you would expect with Claude Giroux. 74 shot attempts 4 per 60 minutes, 3.1 expected goals 4. They outshot Columbus 11-4 last night in their 5-on-5 ice time together. They even outscored Columbus 1-0 in their 5-on-5 ice time together. Like that new Ottawa top line, like I'm not a fan of Norris either, but as long as Tkachuk and Giroux are together, I'm a fan of whoever's at center between them. So I don't mind like going to Ottawa 1 here tonight. They're going to get depth matchups. Like they're not going to go out that often against the Beniers line. They're going to avoid like top pairs. They're in a really good power play matchup. I do like Ottawa 1. I just worry about power play ice time. That's basically it. On the Seattle side, it's probably the McCann, Beniers, Eberle line for me. Gord did get moved up to the same power play unit as Tolvanen, so it does give them a little bit of extra power play time. But Stützle and Batherson, like Batherson is not a good defensive winger. I don't know if, Joseph and Stützle are good enough together to kind of carry him in that regard. And that's who's going to be going out against the Beniers line. And Beniers, for all their issues, they have been generating a lot. 74 shot attempts per 60 minutes over their last 75 minutes together. I think Beniers had a 2-point game a couple of games ago. So Seattle 1, Ottawa 1 in this game. I'll say specifically, I like the Ottawa power play guys the best. I just worry about the Ottawa power play ice time.
Yeah, it's also a pretty good matchup for the Seattle power play. The problem is Seattle power play is spread across 46 different lines. It's hard to power play stack them. McCann had 2 power play goals the last time they played, but yeah, Beniers line for me. Hey, you guys, why haven't you gone premium yet? I'm talking to you. Sign up using the link in the description box below to get access to the best NHL data and tools in the industry. You get player and ownership projections, top stacks tools, line combinations, and you get access to the Discord, which is invaluable. Cliffy and I are always in there. Jake and his Giga Chad Jawline are in there. Lots of members always talking some sauce in there. If you got strategy questions, you can fire away. There's tons of people willing to help. It is one of the greatest resources that has helped my DFS game too. Just because I'm on the show doesn't mean I'm perfect. Look at that face. But yeah, Cliffy's article is always free to read on stokastic.com/NHL. This show is always free, but if you're looking to take your game to the next level, click that link in the description box below. You can do weekly, you can do monthly, you can add on Fantasy Cruncher if you want. Thank you, Fantasy Cruncher. Philadelphia Flyers with a 2.8 total heading into Pittsburgh. The Penguins had a 3.6 total. I saw some people talking about the Penguins total in our Discord this morning as they're saying, oh, it felt high. Samuel Ersson is in net tonight, not Carter Hart, which is a big drop-off. Our resident Flyers fan, Ray Rock, if he's here, he always says when Ersson starts, they really go into an offensive shell, and they really, slow the pace down to protect Ersson. That being said, the top line for the Flyers, 13,700. They are coming in with a little bit of negative leverage, which makes sense because they're super cheap for a top line. They're going to get that Crosby matchup. Most likely, that line has been trading chances. I don't mind Couturier Konechny in this matchup. For as little faith as I have in Samuel Ersson, I don't have much faith in Tristan Yard. He rewarded that faith with an empty net goal the other night. Just that was just torture. But I kind of like Philadelphia 1 here. They are negatively leveraged just because they're so cheap, but I don't mind them. On the flip side, shooting against Ersson, probably a pretty good strategy for the Penguins. I don't mind that top line. They're coming in with some positive leverage here, just under 10% projected. The thing is, well, it doesn't really matter because the Pittsburgh power play on the season, I think, is the third worst in the NHL behind Washington, and there's one other team right down at that bottom of the list. Anyway, the Penguins power play is god-awful. This isn't the best 5-on-5 matchup, but they are facing Samuel Ersson in net, so I don't mind Crosby Gensel Rust.
Yeah, this is a weird kind of matchup because, yes, Ersson is a much worse goalie than Carter Hart, so it's kind of a gift for the Penguins in that sense. The Flyers do legitimately have and you're right about the Penguins. Well, I was looking at their numbers since Halloween. Third worst power play since Halloween. Only Washington and Calgary worse.
Calgary.
Yeah. But the Flyers legitimately have a very, very good penalty kill. Again, since Halloween, the third fewest shots against per minute while shorthanded, fourth fewest goals against per minute while shorthanded. Like, they are legitimately excellent on the penalty kill. It's not just goaltending, and thank God, because they're not going to get it tonight. But that's kind of the problem that I'm having with Pittsburgh tonight is, like, it's a huge total, but it's an awful power play spot, and their power play sucks. And it's one of those things like, can Pittsburgh score 4 goals here tonight? Like, yeah, sure. But where are those goals going to come from is kind of the other issue. Like, their third line has been really good. The second line, not so much. Actually, since Drew O'Connor's been moved down there. But Malkin's been shooting more of late, a little bit more. So that line can score. Like, if the scoring's not concentrated on the 4 guys on the top power play unit because their power play, their power play is worse than San Jose's. Let's put it that way. If the scoring's not concentrated on those 4 guys, like, where else is it going to go? So it's one of those things where I could see them getting to 4 goals or 5 goals tonight, and nobody having more than like a multi-point game or something like that, right? Like a 2-point game. So I do like Pittsburgh 1 in a nutshell. Like they do have the second highest top 2 stack here tonight behind like we should say it's just Colorado and then everybody else. So they have the highest top 2 stack of all non-Colorado teams. They are expensive at 21,400. They're going to carry probably close to double, if not exceeding double-digit ownership, but they're perfectly correlated on a bad power play. They're also the ones shooting. I think that's the important part here is these guys over the last 4 weeks are Crosby, Gensel, and Rust are first, second, and fourth on the team in shot attempts per minute. So all the shots are coming from this line. So I do like Pittsburgh 1. I just don't think it's as good of a spot as it's kind of being made out to be, as long as Urson doesn't pull a Ronta and give up, 9 goals on 20 shots or something like that.
Which is a possibility.
Which is possible. It is very possible with this guy in net. So I'm kind of out on Pittsburgh here tonight. I think there are other positively leveraged spots that we can go to. Like we talked about one with Detroit. We'll get to that Toronto-Boston game next. Like I think there are just other spots you can go to and not take the worst, maybe the worst power play on this slate. Like they're right there with Calgary neck and neck, and go into one of the best penalty killing teams in the league. Like that's just kind of the way that I'm looking at it, goalie agnostic. So out on Pittsburgh, for me, it is the Philly side that I do like. Wrote up Sean Couturier in the picks article. One of the things with Couturier is he's been shooting a lot more. Like he's typically not a volume shooter, but he's up to 3.4 shots per game over his last 10 games. We know how good Travis Konechny's been. They just need guys on that line to actually start finishing their shots. I don't mind them here tonight. Like you said, going up against that Pittsburgh top line. I think it's a fine matchup for Couturier, Konechny, and Forster. So I think I like the Philly top line a little bit better here, especially where they're $8,000 cheaper.
Yeah, and the 3 worst power plays are on this slate with the Penguins, the Flames, and the Capitals. Good times. I just don't understand why the power play is so bad because they have the names. They just, I don't know, not enough time. Boston Bruins with a 3 total heading into Toronto. The Maple Leafs also have a 3 total. Hung up the sombrero because Marty Jones got called up. He's not starting tonight, but please, God, get him in the game. Sorry, scared the shit out of my dogs there. I hope he gets into a game. It is Wollnet. Yeah. It is Wollnet, and he actually has been pretty good. Samsonov has been awful this year. Woll has been pretty good. The thing is, right, we were talking about this game. First of all, Marner with a hat trick last game. Just the last slate, Thursday slate was maybe the worst of the year. Marner with a hat trick with the full cage. He's in the locker room with his shirt off. He's got a lighthouse tattoo. He's got a big old gold chain with the number 16 on it. I haven't been this mad since my first divorce. So it's just Marner just grinds my gears. But we were talking about this game before the show, and you were saying neither of these teams really have played well defensively, and they're not getting much ownership. The top line for Toronto, Matthews, Nylander, Knees, 6.9% projected ownership. How do you not play them at 6.9% projected ownership? It's just too good of a number. And then on the flip side, you have Pastrnak, Zacha, DeBrusk, 5.8% projected. The second line for Toronto, 5.3% projected. Then you get down the list in the depth, nothing over 0.5%. But honestly, I would much rather play Toronto 1 here tonight than Pittsburgh 1. I think if you're going to get lower ownership, Boston. This isn't the Boston team from last year. I don't care what the record says. There's no Bergeron. There's no Krejci. The goalies have been good, yeah, but the goalies have been bailing this team out. If you look at the numbers, so I like both top lines here. The three totals on both sides might be a bit misleading. I think this is going to be a fairly high scoring game.
So Matthew Knies has been on the top line with Austin Matthews for nearly 130 minutes now at 5-on-5. We're looking at 10 full games, if not more, of 5-on-5 play. They're getting outshot, they're getting outchanced, and they're losing the expected goal share battle, and they're also getting outscored. 3.2 goals for, 3.7 against per 60 minutes of 5-on-5 with Nice on the top line. Now, if you want to lay that at Marner's feet, Josh would probably love you for that. I'm not sure it's entirely Marner's fault. I'm wondering how much of it is just the blue line not being very good. But the simple fact of the matter is the Toronto top line has been like awful defensively. Not like awful for this relative to this team, not awful relative to other top teams in the league or what should be top teams, just awful league wide. That's kind of leaning me towards the Boston side of things here. Like, don't get me wrong. I don't mind the Toronto top line here. There's been a downturn in the shooting from Matthews and Nylander. Like, they're both under 20 shot attempts per 60 minutes over the last 6 weeks. That's high for most players. That's low for them. And especially considering the way that Nylander started the first 5 weeks of the season or whatever. That's this Matthews line. Like, if they're not going to turn things around defensively, like their penalty kill's been good, but not elite. Not that the Boston power play has been any good, but Pasternak and Zacha have generally been pretty good this year at creating offense. They've been really, really good defensively. Zacha doesn't shoot a lot, so maybe you can leave him off, but he is on the top power play unit with them. I do like David Pasternak a lot as a one-off. Like, if you want to avoid what's going to be a super chalky Nathan McKinnon, but you still have the salary to spend up for a one-off. Like, I think David Pasternak is a great idea here tonight. But I do like the Pasternak, Zacha, the Brusque trio going into the Toronto top line, and I'm not convinced that Marchand doesn't just jump back up to the line by the middle of the second period. So I do like Boston 1 here. This is my problem with Boston 1 is they're coming in with about the same top 2 stack percentage as the Detroit top line that we talked about. 7.7% for Boston 1, 6.6% for Detroit. And Detroit, that was on FanDuel. And Detroit's coming in much lower ownership than Boston. Boston at 5.8%, Detroit 1.4%. So, like, you're getting a line that, it's $1,000 on DraftKings, $1,200 more expensive. But about the same top 2 stack percentage and about a third of the ownership. So that's why, I agree with you that I like the top lines in this game more than Pittsburgh, and I would play Boston 1 over Pittsburgh 1. But I still think there are other expensive lines to go to instead. But in this game, the line that I like best is Detroit 1, Toronto 2. Congrats to Marner on his hat trick, but he's still not shooting very much. Like 2.3 shots per game over his last 10 games. That's absolutely nothing. Even if Boston's defense has slid a little bit, their penalty kill is still really, really good. Toronto does tend to rely on the power play a little bit. Like, I think for me in this game, like, unless you want to dig super deep and go, one off Charlie Coyle, one off James Van Riemsdyk, one off, Nick Robertson or Max Domi or something like that. I think for me, it's Boston 1 that I like the best here.
Yep, that's a fair take. And hopefully we see some party Marty Jones in that, even though Woll is confirmed.
Fingers crossed.
Let's get to the main event. Get the main event of the evening. St. Louis Blues with a 3.1 total heading into Arizona. The Coyotes have a 3.4 total. Kind of surprised at the Arizona total. I know it's the Blues and I know it's Bennington and I know they suck, but like the Blues just don't take penalties. I guess when they do, they give up goals, but like, I don't know, man. Like, and you see Cooley, Schmaltz, Keller coming in double their double their top 2 stack percentage, and that line has been awful. Like, they've been getting run over. And then, the line that has been scoring, Carcone, they're awful defensively in a small sample, like awful. And they're going to get Buchnevich, Thomas, Neighbors because they send them out against top comp at home for some reason. And that Neighbors, Thomas, Buchnevich line coming in at 2.1% projected ownership at 15,300. Call me crazy, but I'm in on the St. Louis top line here. I'm out on the Arizona top line. I just don't want a 12.6% for an awful line. I'd rather just go play Seattle at that ownership, to be honest with you. You want to go to Arizona too? I think that's fine. 12,000. They're a bit negatively leveraged. Bukestad, Krause, Michelli. You can leave Michelli off if you want. He's a better actual player than DFS player. I think my favorite line in this game, it is Hofer tonight. Clayton says I like 6 of one, half a dozen the other. I think he's a little bit better than Bennington, but it's the Blues blue line. So I think my favorite line in this game is Buchnevich, Thomas, Neighbor.
Yeah, one thing I will say, two things I'll say. The Arizona top line, I mentioned this on Twitter earlier. The Arizona is generating roughly the same number of shot attempts at 5-on-5 with their top line on the ice that Carolina is generating on the penalty kill with Sebastian Aho on the ice. Like, they're generating nothing. What I will say is, like, their recent schedule has actually been, like, pretty brutal. Colorado, Tampa Bay, Vegas, this St. Louis team again, Los Angeles, Winnipeg in their last 6 games. Now, the last time these two teams played off, there were 11 goals. So I think that's why you might see a somewhat high total. That Arizona top line's just, they've not been able to generate anything offensively, which is like, when I mean can't generate anything, I mean legitimately unable to generate anything. And the thing is even with Arizona scoring 5 goals in that other game, Nick Bukestad, 1 goal, 1 assist. Michael Carcone, 1 goal, 1 assist. Lawson Krause scored. Jason Zucker scored. Like, yeah, Nick Schmaltz got on the board, but that was it. This line is not generating anything at 5-on-5. And like you said, St. Louis doesn't really take a lot of penalties. They're the least penalized team in the league by a wide margin. They take a quarter penalty less than the next closest team per game. Like, that is a huge, huge gap. I'm out on Arizona 1. Arizona 2 would probably be the line that I would go to, just because I think Neighbors and Thomas just really haven't been that good defensively so far this season. They have been using the Krause, Bukestad, Michelli line more in a shutdown role because they can't use the top line's getting run over, so they can't use them in the top line matchups anymore. So they have been using the Krause line. They have been using the Carcone line more in those shutdown roles. Going out against Thomas, I think that favors the Arizona side a little bit. So I don't mind Arizona 2 as kind of like a fillery type stack. They're coming in over-owned. But honestly, man, like 5% in this matchup, I don't think it's really that bad. Like, it's a 3.4 total. Like, it's higher than Montreal. It's higher than Toronto. It's higher than Boston. It's higher than St. Louis. It's higher than Calgary, Vegas, Vancouver. Like, they're expecting goals here. And if we assume none of the goals are going to come from the top line, it's going to be those middle 6 guys again. So I really do like Arizona 2 here, even at negative leverage at 5% or whatever. I'll go get my positively leveraged line elsewhere. On the St. Louis side, kind of by the same token, I do like that St. Louis 2 line, the Shen Kairu line, Shen Kairu Hayes. I feel like I worry that I'm a day late on them because they did go off on Thursday. But they're going to get more of that top line matchup against Keller and against Cooley and those guys. And like I said, those guys have just been getting run over. You don't get perfect correlation like you would with the top line, but like, I don't think anybody should be stacking St. Louis for their power play prowess because there isn't any. But Kairu and Shen have actually been generating reasonable amounts of offense. Like, this is a team that should outscore their expected goals metrics because of the way that they play. And that's exactly what Shen and Kairu have been doing. And they've been doing it shooting under 14%, which is, 13.9% is high, but it's another one of those, like, if they finish the season at 12%, I wouldn't be surprised, or 11.5% or something like that. So I like the Shen Kairu Hayes line, avoiding the shutdown matchup from Arizona, avoiding, use of Balamaki or whatever they use for shutdown defensemen here. They have been rotating that. Kairu's got to start scoring eventually, man. Like, his shooting percentage has got to regress at some point. I like Kairu, Shen, and Hayes on the St. Louis side, but on the Arizona, I think it's both second lines that I like here better than both top lines. That's just kind of a simpler way of putting it.
Yeah, I don't mind St. Louis too, but I also like St. Louis 1. Jake from State Farm, Slappy apparently. So who knows? As we mentioned off the top of the show, we are sponsored by Sleeper Picks. You can get up to $100 first deposit match promo. You can win up to 100x payouts which are the highest payouts on the DFS market, can place in-game contests, more stat categories, home runs for MLB, triples, stolen bases, etc. We're not even in baseball season, but you can do triple doubles, double doubles for NBA. Dynamic payouts are now live. What are those, you may ask? In short, each player projection now has a multiplier attached to it as opposed to preset multipliers based on the number of legs in a contest. With dynamic payouts, also comes more stat categories to place contests on. Built-in group chat functionality where you can see and copy your group picks with the tap of a button. The minimum deposit is $20 on Sleeper. We do have a free square for you. Trevor Lawrence over half a yard passing on the Monday night game. So that is a free square to get you going. If you want more information, you go to stokastic.com/promos/sleeper-fantasy. You'll see it right on you just go to stokastic.com. You'll see the ad at the top of the website there. So if you are interested, you can get a deposit match bonus and you have the Trevor Lawrence over half a yard free square. So check out stokastic.com for that promo. Colorado Avalanche with a 3.8 total heading into Anaheim. The Ducks have a 2.6 total. Colorado won $25,000 to stack on DraftKings here tonight. 24/7 to 25, whatever, $300. Who cares? There are plenty of cheap lines that you can fit with them. You can almost fit some top lines in with them. It's kind of annoying. You can fit them with Seattle. It's like, how many times are we going to have a Colorado 1 Seattle Yanni Gourde line slate? Hope not tonight. I do really like Colorado 1 here. Your top 2 stack percentage is outrageous. Again, it's over 43%. Ownership a little bit under 20% here. They're fully correlated. Like we mentioned with the power play spot, this is arguably the best power play spot of the night. Fully correlated. I'm out of things to say about Colorado 1. You can play them if you want. Don't play them if you want. They're pound for pound, dollar for dollar, the best line on the slate. Where it gets interesting is, I guess you can also play Colton Wood too, man. You want to do it, it's fine. They're super cheap. They're coming in negatively leveraged, though. They shoot a bunch. They don't finish. That's why they're on the third line. Ross Colton should be on the top power play, but we don't have time for that. Uncle Leo in the lineup tonight. Ducks are getting absolutely no ownership. Line matching kind of important here. If you assume the McKinnon line goes out against McTavish, Vetrano, and Strome, then Leo, Terry, and Killorn are going to avoid them. They're either going to get Colton Wood, Johansson, Drouin. So they're 13,500. The Avs take a ton of penalties. They're under 1% projected. I'm not saying run out and play them in 1 to 3 because it is the Ducks. But if you're going to give me that line at under 1%, when you have similar lines in that price range, Flyers top line at like 9%, the Seattle lines in double digits. In MME, I don't mind the Carlson, Terry, Killorn line. They're fully correlated. The Avs have a good penalty kill, but they take a ton of penalties. So, like, they're going to get power play time. I don't mind getting to Carlson, Terry in your MME portfolio.
Yeah. The Avalanche do take a lot of penalties. Both teams take a lot of penalties, actually. Anaheim leads the way in the NHL. 4.5 times shorthanded per game this season. No other team is at 4. So they are far and away the most undisciplined team in the league. Colorado's at 3.9. They're in third. So, but Colorado does draw a lot of power plays. All this is to say that there should be a lot of special team play here tonight. And Anaheim's last game against Washington, there's a lot of special teams play in that game as well. Carlson, Terry, and Killorn all play on the same power play unit together. I want to call it the top power play unit. Alex Killorn played nearly 19 minutes. Troy Terry and Leo Carlson both played between 21 and 22 minutes. So this is a perfectly correlated, I will call it their top line because they played more because they get more ice time. A perfectly correlated top line that our top 2 stacks has at 13,500, 1.2% top 2 probability, 0.7% ownership. This seems like the pivot if you want to get away from super chalky Seattle or something like that, right? Like, they should get a lot of power play opportunities here tonight. And the line has been generating at 5-on-5. 2.6 expected goals for, 2.1 against in their ice time together. So, they're driving the expected goal share. They're perfectly correlated on the power play. They're priced as a filler stack, and they might all play 19 to 21 minutes here tonight, depending on how the penalties, kind of fall on either side. Like, I think I do like the Carlson Terry Kaloran line for Anaheim here tonight. And on the Colorado side, it's like, this is they're going to play a ton of minutes. They always do. They've been playing very well together offensively. I will say Colorado's expected goals numbers have fallen a little bit. Their last 7 games, they're at 2.8 expected goals for per 60, 2.8 actual goals for. Anaheim has been sliding defensively a lot, though. So, like, Colorado is in a tremendous spot here tonight. There's a reason why they're by far the top 2 stack here, or the top stack by top 2 probability. Sorry. You just have to find something else that you want to play with them. There's no reason to avoid them in this matchup other than, they cost half. On DraftKings they'll cost half your salary. Otherwise, I kind of like the Carlson line here for Anaheim.
Yeah. I mean, Terry hasn't been shooting that much, but like at some point he's going to start shooting the puck. At some point.
I mean, we hope so.
We are the biggest duck slappies. It's just ridiculous. Like every slate during COVID, it's like, here we go again. We're gonna play the Ducks. But yeah, they're a fun team. Sue me. Vancouver Canucks with a 3.2 total. Heading into Calgary, the Flames have a 3.3 total. I cannot stand the Flames power play units. First of all, their power plays suck. But secondly, like, if they're going to suck this bad, at least try to make like a comparable power play unit, load up a unit, give it your best shot. No. Just no. And because this is a good power play spot. Vancouver's penalty kill is atrocious. But their power play, the Calgary's power play unit's awful. Their power play in itself is awful. It kind of reflects in the ownership on Calgary 1 here, the Lindholm, Mangiapane, Sharangovich line. They're 12,000 with a 2.2% 2.2% top 2 stack percentage, but they're coming in negatively leveraged, over 7% projected ownership. Sharangovich and Lindholm are on the top power play unit. Mangiapane is on the second unit. I don't understand why. I don't have time to get angry about it, but like Mangiapane should be on the top power play unit. He's their best forward besides Huberdeau. Sharangovich he could be named like Brad Smith, and I wouldn't even bat an eye. Like, he's just a guy. Like the Flames have a 3.3 total. None of their lines are over 12,100. They're all shittily correlated. I don't even know if that's a word. Correlated on the power play. Their power play sucks, but like Vancouver's penalty kill is atrocious. So I guess you got like default, like kind of got to play. You don't have to do anything, but if anything, like I'm going to that Lindholm, Mangiapane, Sharangovich line. Like I wanted to play Kadri, Pospisil, Zari, but Kadri's on the top unit. Zari's on the second unit. Pospisil doesn't even see the power play unit. So like fun times there. Like Calgary is one of these teams that, as you can tell, really pissed me off. But then on the flip side, no one's playing Vancouver again, and Calgary sucks in net. So like the thing is with Vancouver, they moved Sam Lafferty up onto the top line, which just killed me. Like, what do you like anything in this game? I'm angry.
Oh, really? I honestly could not tell. One thing no, I really don't. Like, I wrote up Sharangovich because, like, I think he's been over 21 minutes in back-to-back games. Top line, top power play. He's only 3,500 on DK, 3,800 or 3,900 on FanDuel. So, like, he's a pretty good cheap filler guy. Yeah, the Vancouver penalty kill has not been good. I think one thing that's been kind of underrated is the Calgary penalty kill has not been good either, or at least it's been on a little bit of a slide. If you look just kind of since Halloween. Calgary penalty kill by shot attempts is basically right in the middle of the league, next to Arizona. If you look at shots against, third most per minute over their last 14 games. Goals against, like right near the bottom 10, next to New Jersey. It might be a decent power play spot for Vancouver here, which is why I kind of like the Miller-Besser line. Like I'm not playing top line with Sam Lafferty on it. That's just not. I'm just not going to do it. And I'll take the line that has two guys on the top power play, with JT Miller and Brock Besser. They're not going to come in with any ownership here tonight. They're reasonably priced for the slate when you look at how many expensive lines there are elsewhere. When you look at, your Detroit, Pittsburgh, Boston, Toronto, Colorado, they are very reasonably priced here tonight. So I do kind of like Vancouver too here. Like they're going to avoid the Elias Lindholm line has been used more in shutdown matchups of late. The reason they've been doing that because Jonathan Huberdeau is just dragging down the Michael Backlund-Coleman and Blake Coleman line defensively. So they can't use that line in a shutdown role anymore. They've been using Lindholm, which means Lindholm out and gets Pettersson. And then what could be some decent matchups for the Miller line of 5-on-5. So they might get, some decent matchups at 5-on-5. They're going to be in a pretty good power play spot. Like if you want to play Calgary. I would play the top line because you get two guys on the top power play unit. As you mentioned, Vegas or the Canucks penalty kill is just not very good. I would rather take lower ownership, even at a more expensive price, and go to the Vancouver side and go to the JT Miller line. Like that's honestly what I like best here in this game. Like Calgary is like broke ass Carolina at this point, where they don't have the defensemen to play that the way that they want to play. They don't have the wingers to play that the way that they want to play. But they keep trying to create a lot offensively by not focusing on their top wingers, like you mentioned with Mangiapane. It's just backwards coaching to me. So I don't mind Calgary one because you do get exposure to the top power play in a good power play spot. But I like the JT Miller line the best in this game, and it's not even close.
Yeah, I agree. I think my favorite plays in this game are on the blue line, which we'll get to after this idiotic late night hammer with the Washington Woats. Washington Capitals with a 2.4 total. They're like the East Sharks now, apparently, but playing in the West. Going into Vegas, the Golden Knights have a 3.2 total. We did it. We have done it. Stevenson is away from Stone. That, I'm sure, makes you very happy. Jack Eichel, Stone, Barbashev, now the top line. Marchessault, Carlson, Cotter, Stevenson, Amadio, Howden, Waugh, Carrier, Keegan, Colasar. Actually, I like that fourth line. They're 8,100. They play more minutes than the normal fourth line. They're actually decent. But, if like, I honestly don't even mind William Carrier if you're trying to jam in Colorado. Like these, like Waugh, Carrier going to play like 15 minutes. So like, don't even mind it. But like this game for me, Eichel, Stone, Barbashev is the line that I like the best in this game. Can we just say on Thursday slate, not only did Marner get a hat trick, Tom Wilson also got a hat trick. Luckily, I was sleeping. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't have woken up the next morning if I watched that game. But yeah, anyway, Eichel, Stone, Barbashev. Go ahead. Vegas one.
No. Yeah, no, it is Vegas one. I think Vegas one is actually my favorite line in this game. It does worry me that they only have a 3.2 total. Like it's lower than Calgary's. I wonder if it's not a function of one, Shea Theodore being out, and two, like outside the top line, there's really not a lot going on. Like William Karlsson has cooled off after like a really good 5 or 6 weeks or what he had. Jonathan Marchessault, he's been shooting more, which obviously is nice to see because that's kind of his calling card. But Marchessault 1 point and it's an assist in his last 5 games. It seems like Vegas is kind of indicating to us, like Vegas, I mean like the casinos and the betting sites, are kind of indicating to us that those 3.2 goals are a lot of it's going to come from the top line. I think that's kind of the way that I look at it. And yeah, like I like Chandler Stevenson as a player. We have to be honest. He's just been terrible for 7 weeks this year. Like basically right from the start. I was looking, here's to just kind of put a fine point on it. Mark Stone's shot attempts per 60 minutes when playing with Chandler Stevenson this year is under 9. That would be like average for a defenseman. And Mark Stone, his shot attempts per minute when he's not playing with Chandler Stevenson at 5-on-5 this season is 16. Like it's like 80% higher. Like that's just how much he was dragging them down. And now you don't even have him on the top line. You have Barbashev there instead. Like there's a reason why I wrote up the Vegas top line in my picks article today. Just the team in general, when Mark Stone is away from Chandler Stevenson, they're generating 56% more shots and doubling their expected goals for. Like, it just completely changes the outlook of Mark Stone of the top line when Chandler Stevenson's not there. So I really, really, really like Vegas 1 here tonight. They're coming in with a little bit of negative leverage, but nothing too crazy. 6.3% against a 5.3% top 2 stack. Another thing I was looking at is over the last 2 years, the top power play unit's been better with Alex Pietrangelo than Shea Theodore, and not just some small sample shooting percentage noise, more shot attempts, more shots, more expected goals, more goals, like everything across the board better with Pietrangelo. Now, Washington has typically had a pretty good penalty kill. They can thank their goalies for that. I saw Charlie Lindgren didn't skate this morning. They said it was body maintenance. Whether he starts tonight, I'm not sure. But Darcy Kemper's just not been good this year. So if it's Darcy Kemper plus this Vegas top line, that should be the best line that they can put together without putting Jonathan Marchessault up there. I really like Vegas 1 here. I'm definitely out on Washington 1. Because Vegas 1 is going to be going into that Washington top line, and the Vegas top line should just absolutely, pun intended, wash them here tonight. But McMichael and Mantha is kind of interesting to me. Connor McMichael, Anthony Mantha, who they end up playing with, I think it was with Protas last game. Mantha and McMichael are up to nearly 100 minutes together, 5-on-5 this season. 3.5 expected goals for per 60 minutes. That is really good. And I'm not overly concerned about the middle 6 matchups from Vegas. Like, if anything, I think like a Mantha McMichael 2-man is perfectly fine here tonight. If you need to get a super cheap, very low-owned 2-man stack to fit in like a super expensive Colorado or a super expensive Toronto or something like that. Other than that, it's Vegas 1.
Yeah. I just, the handling of Anthony Mantha since they traded Vrana for him has been mind-boggling. But anyway, coming up after us at 6 p.m., NBA Live Before Lock with Emac and Neil. So if you are playing NBA tonight, stick around for that at 6 p.m. Emac and Neil will take you up until lock. Let's talk about defensemen and goalies here. The top of the board in very good power play spots here tonight. Makar, 8,300. Very good play. You can't fit him in with Colorado 1. I mean, you probably could. You might just need to punt everything else in your lineup. But I think Quinn Hughes is in a great spot. Matheson's in a good spot. Charlie McAvoy's in a good spot. Pietrangelo, like you just said, is in a good spot. And then after that, you kind of go down to the mid-range. Who you liking in the mid-range?
One guy, I mean, my top defenseman on the night is Cale Makar. I don't think that's a big surprise. I wrote up Alex Pietrangelo basically for the power play reasons that I talked about earlier. His peripherals are very high. He's at like 2.6 shots and 3 blocks per game. Like, that's absurd. Plus, I think, like I said, the power play's been better with him, so I don't mind Pietrangelo either. Also, Rasmus Dahlin is kind of interesting. He's been playing 26 minutes a game of late. He might have to block a lot of shots against Carolina here tonight. And if Buffalo does get on the board, he's probably going to figure into it because he plays so much and he's so involved offensively. So he's not one of my favorite targets on the board, but I do think he's an interesting, like, super low percentage play, ownership percentage play if you're playing a lot of lineups. In the mid-price range, I mean, it's Thomas Chabot again until they start pricing him up a little bit more. Brent Burns, Carolina, still like him. Shane Gostisbehere, he's not projecting super well because his peripherals aren't great. But again, for Detroit, it's a tremendous power play spot for them. So I do like Gostisbehere. Torrey Krug and Torrey Krug is interesting for going up against Arizona if the St. Louis power play should ever get there. Chris Letang is the guy that kind of stood out to me. 4,300 on DraftKings. Like we said, this is a pretty bad power play spot for Pittsburgh. It's not on the top power play. If Pittsburgh does score 4 or 5 goals, it's probably going to be at 5-on-5 or even strength. And Letang is still playing a lot at 5-on-5 and even strength. So don't mind Letang in the mid-price range. Cheap guys, I wrote up Jake McCabe from Toronto. He might have to block a lot of shots here tonight. He's been playing more minutes since he returned with all their injuries. There's 3 guys in the Anaheim-Colorado game that I'm looking to. Cam Fowler, Pavel Mentukov, and Bowen Byram. Byram especially with, given their injuries. Also mentioned Owen Power. If you don't want to pay up for Rasmus Dahlin, going down to Owen Power. Chris Tanev from Calgary. With Nikita Zadorov traded, they're probably going to have to go basically to a 4 defense rotation until Oliver Shillington is back. So Chris Tanev for cheap. He might have to block some shots here tonight. Your $2,500 guys are Connor Timmins, Jalen Chatfield, and I'll also mention Urho Vakanainen. He might have to block some shots from Anaheim here tonight. 2,600 on DraftKings.
Yeah, your point about Letang, 4,300. He's been averaging over 25 minutes a game this season. So
and where the power play doesn't really matter for Pittsburgh, there you go.
Yeah, and he was on the top power play last year, priced up in the 6Ks, and their power play sucked last year. So you're basically getting the same guy for 2K discount. Let's talk a little about goalies here at the top of the board. Alexander Georgiev. If these are more cash plays, like Georgiev at 8,500, it's a winnable game for Colorado. Obviously, the Carolina starter, they did not announce it yet. Ronta's 8,400. Kochetkov is 8,200. I don't know. Yari at 8,300. It's a cash play. It's a winnable game. He might score on the empty net again. Probably not, but that was disgusting. Ville Husso, 8,100. It's I just don't like spending up. Connor Ingram at 8K. Don't really like spending up for these goalies. You start going down the board here. Demko stands out at 7,500. Linus Ullmark at 7,500. Even Jake Allen is going to see a ton of pucks here tonight. I wish he was a little bit cheaper. Joel Hofer, that's Arizona has a huge total, but I don't know. I'd much rather play Hofer than Bennington. Urson under 7K. We'll have to see who starts for Buffalo and Washington. If it's Kemper, absolutely no interest. If it's Lindgren, might have some interest there. But I'm a broken record. Hate goalies. Who do you like him?
You hate them. You just named 12 of them. Seems like you're a big fan.
I just, I can name 12 of them. It's fine. They all suck.
I wrote up Thatcher Demko in the picks article. These two teams, Calgary and Vancouver, played recently, and Calgary put up 38 shots. Now Casey DeSmith was starting, but Demko just saved 40-44 in his last start. Demko and Ullmark are the 2 guys that stood out for me because they're both kind of in that mid-price range on DraftKings, 7,500. Ullmark might see a reasonable amount of shots from Toronto here tonight. We'll see how Boston's defense holds up. If Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen starts for Buffalo, he's probably my favorite super cheap goalie on the board here tonight. I agree with you on Charlie Lindgren. If Charlie Lindgren is starting, I would play him, but I do think it's going to end up being Darcy Kemper, and I would not play him. The only kind of expensive goalie that I don't mind here tonight is Tristan Jarry. Pittsburgh has been giving up some shots, but their penalty kill is very good. Philly doesn't score a lot of goals on the power play. Their power play sucks. Should be a lot of 5-on-5 shots for Jarry. So, if you have 8,300 and you can pay up for him, I don't mind him.
Yeah. Goalies are just a rotating door of crap. If you have a guy you like, you play him. The variance in goalie is probably the highest variance position in DFS, maybe besides starting pitcher 2 in MLB DFS. Who are you liking for your hat trick pick?
The game that we finished with, I'm going with the guy that's finally getting a good winger and a good center, and I'm going with Mark Stone.
I like it. I'm going a little bit off the board here, a little bit spicy, because that's what I do. And as a side note, I haven't hit a hat trick pick since Lincoln was the president, but we will change that here tonight. Jesperi Kotkaniemi.
I hope so. Don't mind Carolina 2 here tonight either. Let's see how they do.
Yeah, we will be back. When will we be back here?
I think there's a show Monday.
Let me see. There is a show Monday. We will be back Monday. Thank you. But make sure to smash that like button on the way out. If you are considering going premium, just do it. Come into the Discord, say what up, and we'll talk. Good luck, everybody.
Good luck tonight, everyone.